the 1980s and 90s acted very weird. They were looking at draft picks as disposable. The current system now, 7 or 8 rounds usually, the best players get drafted. But back in the day, there was a lot of guessing and, what do you call it, hometown picks in the later rounds. So I think in response to this, we had something called the NHL Supplemental Draft. Now, this supplemental draft was established by the NHL as an offshoot of the NHL Entry Draft held every year. Now, these drafts were between 86 and 94. The supplemental draft was used by squads to select collegiate ice hockey players who were not eligible for the standard entry draft. It was created in response to the bidding wars between teams to sign college players like Adam Oates and Ray Stasiak, both of whom signed multi-year contracts with the Red Wings worth over $1 million in 85. The first draft was held on September 17th, 1986, a month after the NHL Players Association approved a new contract with the league, allowing the owners to hold a 2-round supplemental draft before the entry draft. In 92, the supplemental draft was scaled back to a single round and limited to non-playoff teams from the previous season and first-year expansion squads. The supplemental draft was discontinued by the controversial 1995 collective bargaining agreement. Now, unlike the entry draft, most players selected never played in the NHL, although a few diamonds in the roughs went on to NHL careers. Steve Ruchin played the most regular season games at 735. Among selections, and was a team captain for the Mighty Ducks. The great John Cullen scored the most points, 550, as one of 2 selections to play in the NHL All-Star Game. The other, Bob Kudelski, is one of 8 other selections who enjoyed NHL careers at least 200 games, with Corey Cross, Sean Chambers, Todd Krieger, Jamie Baker, Steve Martins, Dave Suggerud, and Steve Goulia, rounding out the list. Now, the eligibility rules for selecting players was as follows. They were 21 years old or older by December 31st of the draft year. They had never been claimed the NHL Entry Draft. They had never previously played pro hockey, and he played at least one season of college hockey. Now, the first 2 supplemental drafts featured 7 invalid claims. 6 of them, including Ian Kidd, would have been otherwise been the first ever supplemental draft selection because the player entered college after age 20. Now, the other invalid claim was a player who hadn't turned 21 yet. Now, on the September 17, 186, 23 players drafted, then 21, 26, 26, 26, 28, 8, 10, and 10. Now, in 1986, some very, very interesting situations. Now, the key players, of course, that year were Ian Kidd, second rounder to Rob Doyle. And by my estimation, ladies and gentlemen, there's only Randy Exelby was a controversial pick because they figured, Montreal had enough goalies, but he's one of few goalies taken in the first round. Now, the idea about this, Kudelski, again, was from Yale, was the very best prospect, again, taken. But he was considered number 1 because that kid draft was, to their mind. Now, Sluggerud was taken number 1 by the Sabres in the next year at 87. And, of course, other key players, Jeff Medill was taken by the Devils. Some interesting prospects as well, including Wayne Gagne for the Montreal Canadiens, who has played with Western Michigan. So most of the draft picks, if you go on Wikipedia or NHL Draft Central, it's a very interesting group of players that were taken and not taken. You saw a lot of U.S. players that wouldn't have got taken otherwise. But I think the big steal was Todd Krieger again, Hartford, in round 2, number 16 overall in 88. And Krieger, of course, very underrated player. And that year as well, the idea of the universities being representative, most of them were the major universities in the States. And Mike McHugh, of course, a big draft from Hockey's University of Maine. And, of course, that's the era when Maine was making a big comeback. And he had a decent career, played the NHL for a lot of years, with only one NHL goal, of course, with San Jose. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here, what our NHL draft, supplemental or otherwise, let us know what you like. comment, subscribe, or share. And if there's anything I know on this channel that people really love seeing details on the draft, because the draft is sort of like a lottery ticket, isn't it? Because you never know who's going to show up or not show up. But I know one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I don't remember any major coverage of the supplemental draft in the Hockey News and other publications. So it was, as it goes. But I think, ladies and gentlemen, in my personal opinion, they should have a supplemental draft every year, not to say for teams that make the playoffs, but like the lower teams like the Montreal Canadiens, just to bolster their rosters. Because, university college players are sort of like how back in the day some of the Southern black athletes, including quarterbacks, couldn't get in the NFL at their chosen position, came to the CFL. And like I said, these players were really, really good college players. And just to be drafted is an honor, sort of like a completion thing. So ladies and gentlemen, as we like to say around this time of year, when we get the Frozen Four for the NHL, keep your stick in the ice. Thanks for listening. Bye.